The share market and Aussie dollar have taken a dive after an announcement from the US President-elect Donald Trump. What can you tell us?
Well, Gemma, it's pretty much about the tariff announcement that you just referred to. So let's take a quick look at the market reaction before I get into it, starting with the currency market. That's what's taken the biggest hit. So the Aussie dollar right now is buying 64.6 US cents. Just half an hour ago, it was 65 US cents. So the Trump announcement definitely had a big impact on the Aussie dollar, which has slumped to a 7-month low. Now, moving on to the share market, that's also taken a bit of a hit. So when the day started, it was actually in positive territory, but now the ASX and All Ords are both down about 0.3%. So it's a pretty small loss, but it still definitely can be traced to that Donald Trump announcement, which I'll just get into right now. So he posted on Truth Social, his social media network, and basically threatened tariffs on Mexico, Canada and China. So specifically, here's what he said. So I'm quoting here. Donald Trump wrote on January the 20th, which is when he gets inaugurated, as one of my many first executive orders, I will sign all necessary documents to charge Mexico and Canada a 25% tariff on all products coming into the United States and its, well, so-called ridiculous open borders. Trump also said the tariffs would remain in place for Mexico and Canada until those two countries clamp down on drugs, particularly fentanyl, and migrants crossing the border illegally. So that's open to debate how truthful those claims from Trump are. Now, on China, Trump also accused Beijing of not taking a strong enough stance to stop the flow of what he calls illicit drugs crossing the border into the US from Mexico. He then goes on to say, until such time as China stops, we will be charging them with an additional 10% tariff above any additional tariffs on all their many products coming into the US. Now, the interesting thing, particularly about China, is that Trump has only threatened a 10% tariff because during the election campaign, he was promising tariffs of up to 60% on China. So this announcement of a 10% tariff on China is a lot smaller than he previously flagged. But look, there is room to ratchet that higher, which is similar to what we've seen during his first presidency when China and the US were engaged in a tit-for-tat trade war, ramping up their tariffs against each other's products. Though what much of the American public doesn't seem to understand is that the consumer ends up paying these higher tariffs, not China, Mexico, or Canada there. So I guess the question on everyone's minds is how could this affect Australia? And judging from the reaction we saw from the currency markets and Aussie market, it could be quite a significant impact. And that's what the Reserve Bank of Australia believes too, because it actually did some war gaming on this, according to documents released under a Freedom of Information request. So back in early October, before we knew the results of the US election and that Trump would become president again, the RBA did some modelling there, and it basically says in an extreme or a moderate scenario, tariffs imposed by America, assuming it's a 20% tariff that Australian goods are hit by and a 60% tariff for Chinese goods, it could have some impact on the Australian economy. So not a direct impact from American tariffs because the trade flows between America and China, Australia and America are relatively minor, but indirectly it could have a significant impact because China is our major trading partner. So any slowdown in China's economy caused by a ramping up of the US-China trade war will affect us. So it says that the Chinese growth will have some, there'll be consequences for that, and it will put downward pressure on local policy rate expectations. So that's code for interest rates might remain higher for longer in Australia, and the Aussie dollar could come under further pressure, as we've seen this morning. And equity prices, as in share market prices, could decline further as earnings expectations are revised down. And overall, the Reserve Bank says in its wargaming scenario that they judge this will be slightly negative for domestic growth, as in our economic performance. So, yeah, we're definitely not going to be immune from these the ratcheting up of the trade war that Trump has flagged already. In fact, we'd be probably quite exposed since Australia is a very trade-dependent nation, Gemma.